Good moaning, coffee moaners. What a wonderful day to have a good moan, eh? The sun is shining, which we know is actually can be a really horrible thing for somebody that is suffering with their mental health. So just to give you a little update. So today's coffee moaning is going to be very different. So if you've never joined us before, I just wanted to say what coffee moaning is usually like, which is we discuss things on the news, we chat, do water cooler chat, the kind of things that you'll be chatting about. Sometimes we talk about films and we talk about all sorts of things. But here in England this week is Mental Health Awareness Week. And we actually, I think, do pride ourselves across all our social media platforms that we are not the hi guys, everything's fantastic here, because I think that actually is a huge burden for everybody else that's imagining that people's lives are perfect. And we've spoken often about mental health challenges and all sorts of things that make us sad and are difficult. So Mark, so yesterday after we finished coffee moaning, we headed off to Pilates, didn't we?
Yeah.
And first of all, to say, so today's coffee moaning isn't going to be like that. Today's coffee moaning is going to be more about the bipolar low that Mark had yesterday. He's out of the bipolar low, but still exhausted from it. And so we thought we would talk a bit about that, hear how you're dealing with mental health awareness this week. And that is going to be the whole show this morning. It's going to be around that. So after so Mark was very up.
Thanks, Lee.
Before we did coffee moaning yesterday, and I was a little bit alerted because it's not like when he is him silly self and he is like joyful and funny and all those things. There's another edge to it. It's a different edge. So if there's any partners of somebody with bipolar here, you'll know what I mean. Like, you're very funny, you're very joyful, he's playful, he's all those wonderful things, Mark. But when it's a bipolar little bit, because he's got bipolar 2, haven't you? Not bipolar 1. So usually Mark's talking 19 to the dozen, I might say, but I want him to just rest a bit, so I'll fill you in. But bipolar 2 is more like little highs and lows like this. You don't get the manic high like you might see with some people where they're so high, they might go, be very extreme for days. It's not like that. For bipolar 2, of watching Mark is that it goes a bit like this. So yesterday, just before the show, the high is different, and maybe I've never told you what the difference is in the high. The high is different when it's with bipolar because nothing out like it. You will ride over what somebody said. It's like, this is me happy now, and this is how I have to be happy, which isn't him when he's happy. So I was a bit alerted. I thought, oops, I think he might go a bit low. We then left here. We went to our Pilates class, which usually is really good for both of our mental health, isn't it? We find, because it really focuses. And we'd been in the class for about 15 minutes, and then so out of character, Mark just left. He just went. He just got his stuff and he just went. He didn't look at me, he didn't say anything. So I was like, shit, this is bad. And you just had to get out, didn't you? You were feeling really low, and you felt like you would cry in there and you didn't want to, so you just went to the car.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's funny because I spent most of yesterday trying to rest, and I never sleep during the day. I can't do that. I just
but maybe first say what happened when you left.
No, but I mean, I think in the run up to going to Pilates, I'd been really snappy and really stressed, and really
after the show, weren't you?
And really sort of I just felt anxious.
That's what you said. You said, I feel like, oh my God, I'm suddenly so anxious. And it was like a truck hit him. So I know lots of people here that suffer with anxiety will get that. It's so unfair, isn't it, when your mental health hits you from the side, because it's like, and Denise Welsh talks about this very well. The unwelcome stranger.
That's really distressing is that when you feel, but also when you feel hijacked by it, you have this sort of double existence that happens, and it is a bit Jekyll and Hyde, where you can see how your behavior or your snappiness which is your coping mechanism, is affecting or alarming or kind of, not distress is too strong a word, but you can see that those around you, and it was you and one of the girls, you know, you could see that I was, you were affected by it. You were like, oh, Dad's, you know, and what kind of, I don't know if anyone else feels this, but what happens to you then is you kind of double down on being hard on yourself, because you're like, don't feel the anxiety, don't let this affect other people. So you put an additional stress on top of yourself to perform appropriately. No one can perform appropriately under any kind of mental health duress, whether it be if it's an anxiety dip or if it's a bipolar dip. What I didn't have with this, which was a bit strange, was I hadn't had that fizzing brain. And I usually have what's like, I mean, I don't know if anyone else has bipolar, but I can normally have a sense, the fizz, like imagine a vitamin C, you know, those orange lozenges dropped in the back of your head and then it kind of goes up. That usually happens for sometimes a couple of days before, and you can feel it's not entirely unpleasant. You can feel slightly out of it, slightly removed, slightly kind of disassociated, but that kind of becomes a bit of a kind of marker for it. And so it was odd yesterday because I noticed the very beginning, it plopped up on my phone at some point and I saw me go like that at the beginning of Coffee Moaning yesterday. I thought, A, I don't do that. B, I'm not like, you know, it's a kind of, and you're right, it was an enforced jollity. But anyway, so I had all that stress, felt anxious, went into Pilates thinking, well, of all the things to do, this has got to be the right thing because it's somewhat calming, it's out of your head, and I'm not joking, 10 minutes in, I couldn't make my body do anything. I mean, it was doing it, but if you could describe your legs as being overwhelmed with heavy depression, every part of my body said, get out and get safe. And I walked past the lovely teacher that we've got, and I couldn't say anything because I knew I'd burst into tears. And I just kind of rushed past, had my shoes, went out into the corridor, was like on the floor putting my shoes on. And because we'd had to park outside the car park, I had to walk the street to get to the car, and I was just flooding with tears. And then got to the car and then just sat and then just cried. But then you were worried, but then at that point your concern kicked in. And it was funny because I just want to read a message that Michelle sent me. Michelle, who, you know, looks after our channel.
Hang on, take a minute.
No. I just want to say, a huge thank you to Michelle, because Michelle, like you, Nads, really helps. She's massively important.
Yeah, I know. That's Michelle.
But the thing that she just said was, and I just wanted to share this. She said, I think as good as it is for mental health awareness, these weeks can be really triggering as they make you look inward with such intensity at it all, which we would never do normally unless we were in a dip. And I think just from what you were saying, I heard you live out there, some other people had said that. Well,
I just wonder whether partly why sometimes people are triggered in Mental Health Awareness Week is that there's a lot of time suppressing it and not talking about it. And I wonder if sometimes that suppression, we know suppression isn't good. Somebody just said there on that message, you know, our body is king. The body will let you know what you're suppressing. And I wonder if, because there's a little bit of the gates are opened and you can talk about it, and I think you've been thinking about it more, you know, you're doing a couple of interviews this week and stuff. So you've probably been running through actually what it means. But also what I would say is, putting my mum wife hat on now, not enough sleep, working too hard, stress. It is very, very important. And when we did a video years ago with Bipolar UK and the psychiatrist, I've told many of you this before, who we were talking to, who also had bipolar, young guy, he was saying, you know, what are those pillars? Yes, you do a high energy Joe Wicks, and that's really important, but what else do you do? How else do you take care of yourself? And I can spot it. I can spot, you have 3 nights with just 4 hours sleep, then 1 night for 6 hours, then you're getting a headache. And I'm thinking, just calm down. But what I just wanted to say was, it was when I went and you know, left the class and found Mark, and I was messaging, he wasn't answering me. So I was starting to get really scared because the
walking,
way that he left the class was so out of character. I was really scared because, and so I was getting really scared. Where is he? What's happened? What's happened? What's happened? Well, I mean, I knew he'd had a bipolar low, but I didn't know how that was going to manifest. Anyway, so then I find him, I get in the car, and, you know, the first thing Mark's saying to me is, oh, I'm so sorry, don't be cross. And I was like, fucking hell, not crossed, I'm terrified for you. Because, you know, when I got in the car and when you see mental pain and mental anguish, and Mark was saying to me, oh, sorry, I didn't say anything when I left the class. I said, you're mad. I said, to me, and this is what the point I really wanted to make today, very poignant because it's Mental Health Awareness Week, is that if Mark had suddenly had a crushing appendix pain, for instance, and he'd stumbled out of that class, bent double, and then I found him in the car, and I would be like, oh my God, call a doctor, call an ambulance, call everyone we know, da, da, da. But when I got in that car, the pain to me was the same. It was as much of an emergency as if somebody was screaming in pain. And I've said this before, in other situations, not with Mark, and somebody that I know, that, and people around this person are just carrying on like normal. And I'm like, they are in so much mental pain that what you've got to imagine is she's lying on the floor with a broken leg. What would you do? What would you do? You know, it needs that amount of like attention and salve and so I mean, I just literally just had to talk Mark out of being, I haven't done everything perfectly, I've left the class, I've and just because he was in so much mental pain. It was just so awful. And of course, one of our girls was in the gym, and so then we had to get. I'm talking now from the point of view of the person that's with somebody. So, like, you're with this person who's in agony. Anyone who doesn't understand mental health, just imagine they've got appendicitis and they're bent over double, right? But you're wanting to like keep everyone else just like okay and not frightened and him not, because he's in huge fear with the anxiety of it and everything, and the God, is anyone going to see me? And you know, the shame, you know. Why is there shame? Why should there be shame? Fucking hell. Give me physical pain any day to that kind of pain. It's just horrendous. So again, you know, and I spoke to a couple of people yesterday that called and wanted things and needed things. And I said, oh, like, can I just leave it? I said, you know, Mark's not well. Oh, what's wrong with him? Well, he's in really bad mental pain. And I will say that now. I'm never going to say, oh, you know, well, he's got a lot on, or is this, or is that, because we shouldn't be ashamed. You know, like Mental Health Awareness Week shouldn't just all shut down. We're wanting to change things right through life. And that, you know, people get bored now of people saying they've got anxiety. Oh, well, you've got anxiety. Oh, well, anxious. Try anxiety. Try it out for a day if you've never had it. I'm lucky I don't suffer with anxiety, but Mark does, and other people in my family do, and I've seen it, and it is hell. And I think that sometimes people are just bored with hearing these words, and they lose the compassion and the empathy. And
that's interesting what Michelle says. Yeah. I do totally get Mark not stopping. When you're high functioning, slowing down can be as triggering as your inner talk fills the gap. We talk about that a bit, don't we, Michelle? Sometimes hitting the wall is the only way for that mind to reset. And the weird thing about that as well, Michelle, is I know a number of people are saying, I mean, one thing I am eternally grateful for is you and your understanding, and how the girls came in last night, and how the analogy I would use is like, you know, when you see cats, wild cats, and they pad around each other, and you know that they're kind of, and there's the bait, and there's a kind of synchronicity without necessarily being in each other's space. So you see a family of, say, I don't know, lions or tigers or whatever, and they pad around each other and then they settle. That's what I could hear in the house last night, and there's great comfort in that. I know a number of people saying how lucky I am to have, and no one is more grateful for the fact that I have the support network. What comes with that is sometimes, and I think at the point where I got irrational irascible, stressed and anxiety laden, I would say sometimes at those moments it feels like the worst thing one's got is people to be some way responsible for, or when I say answerable, I don't mean like you're answerable, because here's the fact of the matter. Sometimes I don't think anyone who's not struggling with mental health illness could cope with the sheer number of dips that one has in a day. Some days I feel like even when it's not a sort of diagnostic bipolar dip, there are so many what I would describe mini catastrophes going off in me.
No, I know.
But I could not share them all because it would floor the most tolerant and accepting of people. And so sometimes that's not in any way a kind of, you need that support network, you want that support network, but it's not always the thing that you think it is, because actually it drives me to a more private place. It can make me want to kind of hide my feelings more. And then those feelings come out in a really, just seems like, you've said it many times, we've talked about it in the marriage podcast, you just seem like you're in a bad mood, or you seem like this, or you're great. And that's not always the case. I mean, obviously sometimes I'm just being an absolute arse like we can all be. But
I do know the difference.
There is a difference.
And that's the thing, isn't it, when I've said, because sometimes that will come before you have a dip. And I think we've got to a better place now where I can say to you, I think this might be, without you going, no, it's not. Because when he says, no, it's not, it most definitely is. Because it's the warning signals, isn't it? And I think, and I mean, maybe we'll do this on our podcast this week about that, about knowing that and working around it. But another point I wanted to make is, and I do feel really strongly about this. I think if you whisper behind closed doors when you've got kids, it is more frightening. So like straight away yesterday, I said to the girls, Daddy's not good, the little faces, but as we know, he will come out of it, but he's low. He's really low. So he might not want to talk, or he might want to talk or whatever, but let's just be, and so, they cooked last night and you slept a lot yesterday, which I was so pleased about. And then we just, had dinner, watched some telly, we snoozed on and off. And it is about just allowing that space for the person, and it becomes really hard knowing when to interfere or not. It's like, do I interfere now? So like this morning when I went in to see you, and it was like, my instinct was saying you need to be out in the garden. But other times I go in, and when you've been low, and I think, you need to cocoon. You want no pressure from outside. You don't want to have to look a certain way. You don't have to. And, sometimes I get that wrong. Sometimes I'll bully you into it. I'll go, no, I'm not having it. You're going outside. And other days, not at all. But I just wanted to say, yesterday when you got really anxious and then you got really like irritable with me and biting at me, is this right? Right. This is what it feels like when I look at it. It's like you're trying really hard to be like normal. Like what I likened it to, like if you haven't got a mental health condition, right? And say like you're stressed because you've got something that you've got to finish, and then you've got somebody here that you really like that you're trying to be nice to, but over here you've got somebody like slamming a dustbin lid with a hammer. So you can't just you can't do these two things, which is to get this done and speak to this person in a half decent way, because there's this fucking smashing noise going on in your head. That's what it looks like.
Well,
is that a bit?
Yeah, and I mean, like? Gallows humour here. I think add into that you're ADHD and I'm ADHD. So, yeah, yesterday there was an element of me feeling I couldn't keep up with where you were going with things, and I needed to be quiet. But then and again, going back to this idea that my sense of social obligations, that then I didn't want to just appear like I was just being like, I just can't. Then I'll try and partake in it. Then my brain, because of my ADHD, fractures into a million different places. And then I'm stressed by that. I just want to mention something, because a number of people have been mentioning.
Just quickly say, next time, don't try and do it. Or just say, I'm struggling.
Yeah.
Because you go for perfection. You think, I've got to be here and I've got to be, because I knew, because you were like, what is it we're doing that you couldn't come, So just next time, just say, it's get a flag, anything.
Yeah.
Take the pressure off yourself.
I mean, I can see a number. Yeah, I hear you. No, I just wanted to say, I mean, a number of people are saying you've got the added stress of my mum. The weird thing about all of this is, and this is still something that flummoxes me, despite talking about it. And Zoe, I can see you saying you wish more people could just get, there are so many inherent contradictions in mental health and in being the mental health patient, for want of a better expression, and the person who's around the person with mental health issues or going through a dip and what have you. It's weird. It's like how it feels so sort of almost cringily obvious that at the beginning of Mental Health Awareness Week, talking about it and being aware of it, what it's told me, what I'm beginning to think it's told me is how much one's still holding at bay a whole range of emotions and complexities, and how whatever system I've got in place to cope, whatever the coping mechanisms are, they're mechanisms that when they fail, there's no sustenance or substance behind that, because like you rightly say, you know, exercise might be a consistent one, but where is my spiritual foundation? Where is my sleep foundation? Where am I looking after myself in other areas? But also what happens when you go on the slide, it's not like, oh, I say, for example, I think of my mum's situation, or
no,
I think of a situation with other, you know, there's a lot of other things going on in my family life. And all of those things start to seep in. So the cracks have appeared because of the breakdown. Yeah. And as the cracks appear, the goo of every real life issue creeps in. And then what that does, it's a bit like a damp in a crack. It starts to pull those cracks open. And then they become real world cracks where you feel hopeless about so many aspects.
And then it exacerbates.
And then it becomes.
And then I don't know if you remember yesterday, you were doing all of that. You were bringing in everything. And I kept saying to you, this was in the car. No, don't do it. Don't think, don't try and settle on these problems now, because your brain is fizzing in a way that you just can't. Now, it's not about don't think and don't say, but it's just like, I'll deal with that later. You have to say to yourself, I'll deal with that later, like CBT teaches. It's not about, CBT will say, you don't say, oh, don't think about that, because you get pink elephants things, don't think about pink elephants, what you're going to do, think about it. Just say, not at the minute, in a minute, and you just park it. And I think I broke through a bit with you yesterday, because I kept saying to you, what would you be saying to the girls now if they were sitting here highly anxious and saying, and then this isn't, and then I've got the party, and then I haven't done this. Now, why are you like a motorway pile up? You cannot breathe. Then it becomes an echo chamber of hell. And you've actually just got to go, I'm just taking 1 minute. Just say to your I'm just taking a minute. We'll deal with that after. I'm just taking a minute. A bit fizzy at the moment, taking a minute. Because you were just like, you'd opened every fucking door and it was all flooding in, and you were just getting so overwhelmed with it.
I mean, it's a little bit like yesterday when I was in there. There were times where you feel like you were, I mean, someone was just asking, where are you today? What happens after these bipolar dips? I feel like I've run a marathon emotionally. I feel completely like, wow, you know, just depleted in so many areas. And yet because, as Michelle says, I'm such a kind of want to keep busy. And well, not just that, but just busy, you know, I want to be
running away
this,
from yourself.
But is it just right? It's not.
No, it's not just. It says you're very, very bright.
Yeah.
You have loads of things you're passionately interested in. You have very high functioning, the highest off the scale ADHD. So you think of one thing and then you think of 25 things. And you know, there is such a thing as ADHD burnout, where people literally collapse.
Well, yeah, and I think, but I think that's one of the issues with people with bipolar and ADHD burnout.
It's very, very, very difficult what you deal with. And I think what you need to do is give yourself a huge pat on the back and think about how well you do deal with so much. But I will never stop nagging you on taking a bit more time out.
Michelle again says here, I think part of it is you detach from yourself. When I have a dip, I lose my words and I'm wordy, and it feels a real effort to find any. But then that bluntness makes me sound defensive and annoyed.
Well, I've never heard you defensive.
Very, very.
And actually, I do want to do that on our podcast, because, and I think we should do this on the podcast. It's like, if you'd never been diagnosed with bipolar 2, I would have just always thought that you're this person that is really lovely, but can just be so irritable and so like, you know, like how many people that are just described as bad-tempered or cross, or, you know, how many people have actually maybe got bipolar 2 where they're going like this? You know, they're dealing with this.
But I was in there were points yesterday where I was going into real panic. I woke up this morning and I looked at my phone. The last search thing I did was, how often does bipolar 2 turn into bipolar 1? And I didn't realize it did. It does, and it can do. And
can it?
And I got into I went into a panic then as well, because the thing that alarmed me about this was I didn't have my own physical sensation prior to it. It was really weird. When I was in that class, I didn't get the familiar kind of triggers that were telling me. I just had to escape.
It's true. I can see very clear low.
Remember, men have hormonal dips
I
too.
see very hormonal dips. Mark is terrible
Lego
with the
really
moon.
helps me.
Now, the reason I've put that up, and Stuart, thank you for doing that.
Mindfulness.
I am literally exhausted with how many years I've been saying this to Mark. So a lot of you guys won't know that Mark is the most brilliant artist. Like, he could just draw anything. He can paint. He's done that beautiful picture up for me. It's like nothing nourishing to the soul that doesn't fully engage your brain do you ever do. So that sort of simple thing, and you do enjoy it whenever you've sat in. So I do think that's really an important part of mental health. I do think, like, you know, when the kids were younger as well, and sometimes even now we do it, like when we're anxious, we'll colour in things. What's all that stuff we've got over there? I'll show you. Mark did a little video, and it does. Like, sometimes the girls will really overwhelm with stuff. I go, let's just do it. And it just you don't think. You don't think. So Lego, people might go, oh, Lego. But when I think of my granddad, right, you know, my granddad was in the war, you know, he was a bomber, he was this, God knows what kind of childhood we had. We don't know because nobody ever spoke about it. But he always made his model planes. And I think, and I wonder, again, because we have 24/7 availability on our screens, don't we? I wonder if that's another part of why people seem so much more anxious, is that people used to do hobbies. Countries, like, apparently 99% of people in Norway have a hobby.
You know, that's why, you know, our lovely sort of virtual son-in-law, Paddy, he does Warhammer, and he paints all the figures, and he was showing me his figure the other day. I don't know if you saw, I was having a chat with him. And the guy in one of the Warhammer stores said, you need to enter this for a competition. It's so beautiful. It's so brilliant. But it was totally reminded me of the Airfix kits that we did when we were younger. And I think a lot of gamers, I think Edward Bedington, you just said game, but a lot, you know, those whole, you know, hobbies, it's weird because. But
you will never do a hobby because you have to be achieving everything you do. So you're tearing yourself to pieces.
Yeah. Carol Roberts, can you just go and sit in a church? The piece is amazing.
I love sitting in a church. Mark, to spend time to get to a church and then sit in a church. So thank you, Stuart. Stuart, you can keep nagging him. What's it going to be? Lego?
Well, look, YouTube says this. We also have more frequent rapid temperature flips per year now, which affects health too. Wow, more in southern hemisphere.
How interesting, yeah. And I mean, the moon, like, we know the moon affects us. My God, it's a big full moon. My yoga teacher was saying this today. It's a big full moon, deeply in Scorpio, which you are, huge changes, huge shifts, all of that. So there's so many things that come into play.
It's funny though, you talk about gardening. It's like each time, I mean, this year is a very challenging year for gardening because baked into it is a bit, each time I get out there, there's real sadness around the month. And, you know, I'm having to
that's a way of dealing with the grief.
It's a process of overcoming, but sometimes one doesn't want to actually face. So you go out there and you're like, oh,
okay. So there we have another key. It's like, I don't want to face it. Why can't you be out in the garden letting tears stream down your face?
Well,
you know, because where do
that's your next grief figure.
Where do you think it goes? If you just, I'm not going to go in the garden because I don't want to feel that. Or I'm not going to do this because I don't want to. Well, I know what I'll do. I'll do another 8 hours of work, and then that's when you get burnout. And this is the same for everybody here.
I think one of the other things as well, just finally, that I just wanted to talk about was, we said it yesterday, and I think I said it to you when I was having a proper breakdown after the Pilates. I get really heartbroken sometimes when I think that when I'm feeling up, not that kind of weird, kind of like yesterday was you're right, I get how that was different. I saw it when it popped up on my phone. But sometimes I get so depressed and depleted by the idea that every time I'm up, baked into it, inscribed in it, is the knowledge that it's a sign
not every time.
Of being down.
But it's not every time.
But I can't work out the difference sometimes.
Because you can't see that at the moment because you're still in recovery from the low yesterday. But I can tell you there is a massive difference to you. And we laugh so much and we can be so silly and we can be so joyful. And that is us. But it's the difference of it's between the two of us. Whereas when it's a high, it comes in. It doesn't matter if somebody's in the middle of a conversation. It doesn't mean it. And it's like, oh, and it's like, this is the only way it will be. And it's here. And it can have no relevance to anything. And it's totally different. And for every 10 times you're joyful only one of them is a manic thing, you know. So, but you don't try and work that out, because it's another stick to beat yourself with, isn't it? I'm not being perfectly happy when I'm happy. You know?
Do you want a really odd thing? Nadia came in this morning and said, "Oh, you know, it's a full moon. I think you've done yoga." Guess what T-shirt I was wearing? Look at Coffee Moaning yesterday. The T-shirt I was wearing.
I said to him, "It's yoga." I said, "In the full moon, it's like you're howling at the moon. It's like that werewolf thing." And he went, "Look, I've got my T-shirt." He was wearing a bloody werewolf T-shirt. I said,
"It was American
Werewolf
in London."
That off.
How weird is that?
Hey guys, my yoga teacher is giving a free beginners class today, so please do it. It's free. Have a go. You can lie on the mat and not do anything. I've put a link up on my stories. You know, if you're struggling a bit, she'll read a bit of astrology. She can do some breathing. You don't have to do the moves if you don't want to, but if you're wanting a bit of company, it's live. So, you know, everybody's there. You don't have to put your camera on, but if you want to be with other people and other energy, 5 o'clock today. She's so lovely. She's so healing. If I'm back by then, I will be doing it.
If you go to the link, if you go to the yoga that Nadia uploaded the other day, the link to her website is beneath that. I mean, quite a few thousand people have watched that, so I don't know if they all know to click underneath.
Right. But she's at Rachel Spain Yoga. You can go there. Story on my stories.
It was the full flower moon last night, Deborah. What does that mean? What is the flower? Does that mean flowers are flowering? Yeah.
So I'll have to look that up. I'm interested now. So we may or may not. We're going to see. Like, of course, one of the first things Mark said to me this morning is, "How am I going to get everything done? I need to get done today." And I went, "There's nothing. We are self-employed. We will shift it around. We will get everything done eventually, but we don't have to run anything today." Most people would still be in bed who've been that ill. So if Mark's okay, we will be recording a podcast, a mental health one, sort of mental health within marriage. But if not, doesn't matter if we do it at the weekend. Doesn't matter when we do it. So that's it.
Thanks, guys. Thank you for, again, so many comments that I haven't been able to read them all out.
Thank you so much.
Michelle Nye, Zoe, Edward, Ali P. Gabrielle, James, Stormy, Luna Love. So many of you, thank you so much. And thank you for all of the messages that were, my phone was pinging like mad yesterday under the message that Michelle posted.
And Mark's doing a live at 4:30 on Instagram on Thursday.
4 o'clock.
Oh, 4 o'clock on Thursday with Bipolar UK. So if anyone, it's a bit of a strange time.
They can only do it in office hours.
It's a strange time, but if you're around, that will, as ever, be a really good chat. As you know, Mark is a great one to listen to. So lots of love to everybody that's struggling today, and for anybody that is struggling in that different way in watching someone you love going through hell. Let's read out Deborah Holsworth. The name flower moon originates from Native America and Euro and traditions when each full moon of the year got its own seasonal nickname. May is when wildflowers start showing their beauty. Wow. That's beautiful. Thanks for sharing that.
Thank you.
That's beautiful.
Okay, guys.
Yeah. Lots of love, and we will be back to normal tomorrow. At some point, we'll be back to.
Okay.
What's normal?
Yeah. Take care, guys. Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Thank you. Bye.